Oh, great, great. No, no, they had a lot of respect for him, and it was ironic because the day before him, another man who worked in the warehouse, his name was Mr. Cook. His son is the delivery for the bakery up in Kings Park, Billy Cook. His father died the day before, and Mr. Bardwell and Charlie Fitzgerald and Eddie Zetz went up to Clayton Funeral Home for my father's wake, and in the room next door was Mr. Cook, and so they had quite a weekend. They had quite a week in the storehouse.
Now, when you first came here, where was the power plant?
The power plant was right here.
So it was in the smaller building in the parking lot. It wasn't until the mid-'60s that they built the plant across the street.
Right. They started it in the '60s and opened it in the early '70s, I believe. You could check with Jerry Melvin on that.
Now, the old plant,
Yes.
with the leftover coal
Uh-huh.
ash, what did they do with that?
That was from the cinders.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
old one had
cinders.
cinders, and they used to pile them behind the storehouse here. And about every 3 months or so, the company over in Smithtown called the Smithtown Cinder Block would come over and haul them out. And we would weigh them on the scale over here. There's a big truck scale over there. And they would get rid of them that way.
Now, and then after that, they ground the coal into powder, I think, and then
Right.
they landfilled it up there.
Up by the water tower, right.
One thing is I noticed, I was walking around down by the water tower, and it had, I saw some hunks of old melted coal.
Yeah, well, that was probably just that kind of like slipped through the.
Leftover.
Right,
Yeah,
right,
gotcha. So when you worked here, I imagine they would send down administrators to come here and run things. I imagine it might have been kind of tough for them coming in with a seasoned vet like you and telling you what to do. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I had a lot of fun doing that. I remember one time we had a new supervisor from the business office, and this person gave me a hard time. And I told her I was working here before your mother got out of high school, so you have the education and all the certificates, but you can't put the key in the door.
Certified smart, they call
Right.
that.
And we become very good friends after that. Yeah.
Well, sometimes you got to lay the load out.
Yeah, right. It was fun.
Well, I know that at one time, didn't you actually keep a small room with some extras and stuff just in case things were short? You can fill it in to try.
Well,
It's kind of like
that was called falling off the back of the truck. There was no paperwork. It wasn't legal, but it was part of the job. It made the job a lot easier for other people in the hospital.
yeah. So, give me an example of now when you worked here, did the train pull up the goods? Did the tracks go here? Did you offload the train, or were the goods brought in with trucks?
Now, when I first started here, they still had the siding on the other side of the warehouse over there, and that's how we got our flour delivered and sugar. And some canned goods came by train because first they would go to Pilgrim, Stencil, Islip, and then here, or vice versa. I don't know which it was, but it was for all three hospitals, that car. And the same way, then when they stopped the train, we got our beef out of Chicago by truck. And it would be the same thing. He would go to Central Islip, Pilgrim, and here. And then he would go down to Jersey somewhere, and he would pick up a load going back west, so he would go back empty.
Now, the whole time you worked here, we had the coal. The coal was
Right.
piled very high, and
Yes.
the trains would come on the trestle.
Right.
And I remember seeing a few pictures of the trains coming off the track.
Right. Yeah, well, that happened a couple of times when I was here. As a matter of fact, I was in the butcher shop one day getting a haircut by one of the truck drivers. He was giving me a haircut, and one of the cars fell off with 100 ton of coal in it. And Mr. Lawson, the business officer, and all of them were down here, all the big shots down here. And I had a half a haircut. I didn't want them to see it, so I had to kind of hide out a little bit. It was fun. Because I didn't want him to know I was getting a haircut in the butcher shop. And then there was the coal used to put, they would get coal in here like all year long. And one year, during the winter time, in order to get the coal out of the car, sometimes they had to get up on the top of it with the pike poles and get the ice broken off it so that it would come down to the chutes. And there was one of the employees was up there, and he was pushing it down, and he slipped and fell through, and 100 ton of coal fell on him, and he passed away. So after that, we would get coal piled up for the in like the late summer. They would bring in coal every day, just about, to pile it up for the winter, so they wouldn't get any coal delivered in the wintertime.
Yeah, I think someone told me once, maybe Bobby Ryan, that after October they didn't accept any more deliveries.
Right, because of that. Right. His name was. His brother worked in the plumbing shop. I forget his name now,
Alright.
but anyway.
Didn't they actually move the trestle back because when
They took away one piling off the end of it over here, so so if they did push it off, it wouldn't bother the storehouse. It would just land in the street. Yes.
Now, did you because you had all this cold storage here? Was the cold storage ever used for anything else besides storing the food?
The cold storage.
Yeah. Didn't I heard a rumor? Maybe you could that sometimes if someone died over the weekend before they could bring them over to Pilgrim, they would put it. They had a refrigerator here. They would put the people in.
That was at the end down here with the grounds department.
Okay.
There was the grounds department, and they had a room over there on the side. I can show it to you. That had fans in there, and they would put them in there.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. And it wanted to go to Pilgrim, and it wasn't to go to Pilgrim. It was to go up into Potter's Field here on Indian Head Road.
Okay.
And when that got filled up, of course, then up by the water tower. But by that time, they had changed the system where they didn't bring them here anymore. They just stayed in the morgue, because the morgue was behind building A and B over there. I think that's where it was at. And but they did, though. They brought them down here on a weekend until because they were done by the grounds department.
Did you work with patients?
Oh yeah, we had about counting the trucks. We had 4 delivery trucks, counting the farm truck, and each truck had about 3 patients on each one, so that's 12. In the warehouse, we had about another 12, probably another 12 or 15. We had in the butcher shop, we had 3, but they didn't do the butchering because they couldn't do the knives and the saws. But they did the running. They went inside the boxes and pulled stuff out. And at the end of the day, they would clean up and put the new sawdust on the floor. There was always about an inch of sawdust every morning when you went in nice and fresh. And but we had good patients. We had one that had beautiful handwriting. He did our book work, all the ledgers. Of course, you know about Vito.
Yeah.
He had a camera with a kite.
Yeah, Vito. All
And
those beautiful pictures that
right.
we have. For a long time, I didn't realize where they came from.
Yeah, no,
But
they
it was
were
Vito
Vito.
and his kite.
Right, and we gave him, and he was in charge of the spice room, which was on this side over here. And he had a little space in there where he did all his film development in there. Because it was the old-fashioned film in them days,
At one time, and then eventually, they stopped the patients from working here.
Right,
Was that a good thing?
Well, no, it wasn't, because they had to hire new employees. And the sad part was, in them days, the patients could come here by themselves. When I first started here, we had to go get the patients and walk them here. And then when they stopped working, they used to come down by themselves, and they would stand up here, and they weren't allowed in the warehouse anymore. And the old patients would be up here and wanted to come in, and we wouldn't.